Hi everybody. Hi everybody, welcome to Beyond the Lines. My name is Sarah, I'm the artist behind Pinselgeschichten, and today I'm working on a new page in the Outlander coloring book. That's the one, the wedding scene. And I'm using Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 water-soluble crayons today, and I talked to you about why I chose that medium for that particular picture and how I chose my colors for Claire's dress, and how I shade exactly that fabric with only one visible light source in the picture, but having imaginative other light sources around the couple of screens, so to say. I hope you enjoy, and let's get to work. Hello, let's get started. This is the new page in the Outlander coloring book that I'm gonna work on, and the story goes as follows. After a short spell of frantic activity with me standing like a dressmaker's dummy and everyone else racing about, fetching, carrying, criticizing, and tripping over each other, the final product was ready. Complete to white asters and yellow roses pinned in my hair and a heart pounding madly away beneath the lacy bodice. The fit was not quite perfect, and the gown smelled rather strongly of its previous owner, but the satin was weighty and swished rather fascinatingly about my feet, over the layers of petticoats. I felt quite regal and not a little lovely. So this is Claire's and Jamie's wedding day, and if you have the book and have flip through it, you might remember that there's a lot of pictures with the theme of the wedding. So we got this one, and this one, and this one, and this one, and well, it's in the story setting, it's the same day of the wedding, but it's not a wedding picture. But I bumped against the audio equipment, sorry about that. But here's another picture, and that one here is way more or way closer to the dress that Claire did wear in the show. So in the show she had a very lovely gray silver dress, and in the book it's a little different. So I took the book and got it next to me. But I'm gonna go with the description of Claire and of Jamie from the book with this picture here. Because it's quite the big surface, there's tiny details, sure, but there's quite a lot of big space, and this thin, fine line work that I like so much in this book, and that is very different from, say, this page here. I thought I'm gonna go with watercolor and maybe a little colored pencils. So I got the Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 next to me, the whole set, and I'm just gonna go ahead and start coloring both of them and the background and such. Starting off with Claire. She is, this is the German book, so I gotta translate on the fly. It is a cream colored satin, like on the bodice and such, and the fabric has very tiny little buttons on it, and they are embellished with golden lilies. So cream, gold. This with the bell-shaped sleeves, and lace. The skirt is chocolate colored velvet. So on the skirt here we've got two parts, one with the flowers and one that is well, just one color. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna adjust that a little bit. I'm gonna go cream here on these flower parts too, but do the section in the middle with that chocolate brown velvet color. For Jamie, he's described as well, but in the description in the book, he doesn't have a jacket. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the chocolate brown color to the jacket and put my book aside for now and color him that way and have color repetition. He has a jacket here as well. So let me see if there's a picture that is actually a little more accurate. Not really. He always has a jacket and it's not described in the book, but that's fine. I'm just gonna go with the chocolate brown. But let's start with Claire. She has light brown hair, and for that I want to take the raw sienna. So I'm just base coating things for now, maybe shading a little bit. I could actually do that and have very little colored pencil, maybe only. So let's take brown as well. That should be you. Do I have the right? Yeah, got the right crayon. And let's get started. Little raw sienna, little brown. There's a hint of white flowers here in her hair, so I'm gonna leave them white. In the description it says white asters and yellow roses. She's got a yellow rose here, most definitely. So I'm probably gonna give her white flowers in her hair and just have that rose be yellow. I think at this point things change while I color. So sometimes I think I'm just gonna use white, for example, but then I'm actually having a tiny little hint of yellow in there as well. We'll see. So I hope you had a good couple of weeks while I had this show on pause and did my commission work and such, and are re-energized and ready for even more coloring. Maybe you worked on projects. I would love to know if you've painted or colored something, which books you might have worked in, or what projects you did, what creative stuff you did. Did you, for example, sew, or did you maybe crochet or paint or woodwork, anything creative? Did you write maybe? I would love to know how your creativity is doing. Mine is so active, so active. If you know me for a while, you've already heard me say that quite a couple of times, but in case you're new or you haven't seen this particular format yet, I am a creative person all year round, but when late summer, early autumn hits, my creativity has kind of like a flare up. I'm way more creative, inspired by things. I get so many ideas that I'm sometimes overwhelmed by it, and that I always have to have like a little notebook with me to write them down and not forget them. It's like fireworks or firecrackers in my brain, and I always have that late summer and autumn. Don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the time of year, the light outside, something triggers, and I can't really say what it is, but I have a lot of lovely ideas during that time. So currently I'm writing down a lot of ideas that I have, or I work on them right away. For example, so that's my creativity currently. It's that time of year again, and I love it. I love that I have those ideas, and you know, that I am that creative, but it's also quite exhausting. Yeah, I'm gonna be spent in winter and spring again. But until then, I'm so gonna enjoy it. For example, I think I said it in last week's vlog. No, not last week. The week before, maybe? I don't remember. I'm gonna take November and December off. I'm gonna have videos pre-recorded for November, but in December I'm not gonna have art videos on my channel. They will come back in January though. So I'm gonna take off those 2 months because I'm gonna work on another project and do my annual vacation time. So December will be my vacation time, and in November I'm having a very creative writing project set up where I will write an adventure for a role-playing game. So that needs a lot of time because I'm working with a co-writer. I'm not working on my own. So I'm going to need to have quite a bit of time to, well, enjoy the writing process for one, but also to not forget anything, to have everything run smoothly while we write, because we're probably not going to sit in the same room all the time when writing. So we have to be very prepared, very careful to not lose ourselves just in the story, but to write in a rather efficient way so that we can play this adventure in December. So hair is done. You see, I did shade it right away, and that is because, oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. That is because I want to not have too much colored pencils because I like the line work so much. I will have to use a little colored pencil, but I don't want to use it too much. Now let's go for skin tones. For her, I would go with Flesh and Salmon. So I'm gonna get those. I'm gonna start with the flesh tone. So yeah, that's been my last couple of weeks. I've been, for one, painting my commissions and also planning creative stuff for the rest of the year. And developing a time schedule for me to work in until end of October, so that everything is set up and lovely for November and December. And then I know it's such an old saying, and it's like, yeah, sure, but time flies, my friends. Time flies. It's every time around, every year around that time. That's what I wanted to say. I feel like time is progressing even faster. I mean, it's not slow in summer anyways, it just feels even faster in late summer and autumn for me. Maybe it is because I'm so creative in that time, or have an extra amount of creativity during that time, I don't know. But it always feels a little weird. I guess one part could be that it is the end of the year that is drawing closer, and that maybe one could have the feeling of not having everything accomplished that they set out as goals for the year. But since I don't really have goals for a year, I would not subscribe to the idea that that is one of the triggers for me, or one of the reasons why I feel that time flies even more during that time frame. Maybe it's because I'm going into preparation mode, it being for my channels, or it being for birthday and Christmas season, I don't know. But yeah, every time I feel like time flies by faster. Need a little more flesh. Because Claire has two hands that should be colored, or arms even. So now I've got the base coat down for her, and I'm going to take the salmon color, dilute it quite a bit. I don't want it to be very reddish, but I'm gonna shade a little bit. A little more water. So the light source, of course, is that candelabra here. And since there is no other major light source visible, the curtains are drawn close. For example, I don't know where the next window is. I'm gonna take only the chandelier as my light source when it comes to direction of the light. I'm assuming, however, that there's another light source in that same direction, so I'm not gonna color them too dark, meaning there's another light source somewhere in that direction, so I'm not gonna have them be hardly visible because it's just 4 candles that are lit up. So that is the idea. So I'm shading towards the right. And of course here, because both of their hands cast a little shadow. And of course on her arm the light hits the arm like on the left hand side, so the shadow is cast towards the right hand side, and it's a very tiny shadow because she's quite close to the candelabra. A little more here underneath her chin. There we go. Onto the other arm. There's quite a little more shadow, because for one it's further away, but also the other arm and the dress slash skirt cast a shadow, so I can be a little darker here. The flower casts a shadow. Everything is casting shadows onto Claire. Okay, that's her skin tone done. For the lips, I like to use the crimson color or a vermilion, but the vermilion is a little too orangey in this particular set. So I'm going with, am I having the right one? Carmine, no, next one, the crimson, because it's quite desaturated and I don't want her to look like she's got a full makeup on, because they're in a small little village. I mean, there's only so much of haute couture and makeup and such available. I think it's a little more reasonable to have like a full makeup going, for example, on Castle Lear or later on in Lallybroch or Paris, all of that. So I need a little color for her eyebrows. Oh, I still have a little brown on my palette. Let's use that. And just need a tiny little hint of the salmon because I just saw I didn't shade the whole ear. All right, maybe a little more on the nose, on the left-hand side. Her left-hand side in the picture it's the right-hand side, like so. Onto her bodice and dress. It was cream, correct? Yeah, cream satin. So now I have to choose a color that I want to use as cream. I think I'm gonna go for the beige. I think that's closest to a cream color. These are all too yellowish up here. Yeah, let's go for the beige. And I need quite a bit. For that, and I could actually use my bigger brush, because anything but that little section here is going to be cream colored on her dress. The gold that is mentioned for the embroidered bits, I'm going to take a gel pen for that. That will be very last bit to be colored. So I'm gonna disregard that for the majority of the coloring process. And not to have my brush strokes look weird, I'm not going all over the place when coloring, but I stay within certain sections, like for example those ruffles of lace here, and I'm not going over the bodice itself, just to help with this having a smooth finish in the end and not look too weird when it comes to my brush strokes. Takes maybe a little longer than me just going all over the place like in one big go. But it pays off, guys. It does pay off, especially with watercolor, because you can see you can see where you put how much pigment, and it soaks into the paper, so you can't necessarily pull the pigment a lot, and therefore not have a blotchy result. And since I don't want blotchy, I want watercolory but not blotchy, and that's a huge difference for me. I'm taking my time to color section by section here. It also helps to move the brush with the direction of the fabric. It looks way smoother in the end and less busy and wild in case you have brush strokes showing, because sometimes you have, if you want to or not. That's what I mean with watercolory. It can be very smooth with a couple of lines, like here on the skin, for example, you see brush strokes way more, but it's not blotchy, it's watercolory. You know what I mean? And I need more beige. I gotta say, this feels pretty quick. No, it's not, but it feels pretty quick how fast you can get surface colored. Okay, onto the other sleeve. Shading this will take a minute, because with all of these ruffles and such, there's quite a bit to be shaded. But I want to do that with the Caran d'Ache as well. I don't want to go with colored pencil per se. Like I said, I might, or I'm pretty sure I will add a little bit of colored pencil, but I don't want to add like the second layer, only have the base coat in with the watercolor and then do the rest with colored pencil. I'm not wanting that this time. It's perfectly fine for some pictures, but I think this one would be even lovelier with mostly or only watercolor shading, because it's a very serene, very quiet, very lovely scene that is depicted, and I think it benefits the picture to have a very soft coloring with the watercolors. even more beige, because why not? But I need to store all of the crayons I used so that I don't forget which one were in use for the blog post. Because I'm usually working in batches, so I film a couple of videos one day, and then the next day or a couple of days later I edit that batch, and then I upload it, and when I upload I write the blog post. So I gotta look back on my notes to see which supplies I used, which colors, which crayons, whatever it is that I'm working on in a specific video. So I can't remember all of them, so I gotta make sure that my notes are correct, which means I gotta put everything in one spot to write my notes right after I finish the video. Like recording a video. More cream, or beige, it's actually beige. Almost done. And then I can choose which brown tone I want to use for the chocolate brown. I think I want a rich tone, but I don't think I do have something that's exactly like chocolate. But I will take a look at my swatches once I do have that beige part of the skirt colored. And then I need to have a shading color for that skirt, but I want to let things dry a little bit in between and not shade on top right away, because the paper could peel, and I'm not too fond of that. So I'm just gonna give it a minute or two, meanwhile color the skirt, maybe hit the whole thing with my blow dryer. Before I go on top and shade stuff on the skirt. Oh, I'm sorry. Ooh. Okay. Chocolate brown velvet, it said. Here's no brown. A chocolate brown. Could go with the Toledo. Or with the Van Dyke. I think I want the Toledo. It's a little richer. So I could maybe shade it with Van Dyke later. But let's go with the Toledo brown. Is that you? No, that's Van Dyke. You are Toledo. Yes, you are. So let's go with that crayon. And I'm gonna, like I said, use it very likely in Jamie's jacket. But first, Claire's skirt.
I need a little more of that brown crayon. Didn't put enough on my palette. And the last little bit.
There we go. Now this can dry for a minute. I'm gonna make myself a hot tea. Then maybe hit this page with my blow dryer, and then I can go on shading the dress. And then Claire is almost done then. Let me look at the time. Oh, almost an hour. I might get her finished today, aside from gel pen and such. And I need a color for the earring. I gotta think about things. But yeah. Let me get a tea. On to shading. This actually dried by itself, so I didn't need to hit it with my blow dryer. So let's see, what do I want to use as a shading color? I'm currently looking at sepia and Van Dyke. I think the sepia maybe for, let's go with the Van Dyke first. Maybe use the sepia. Van Dyke is a cool brown. I'm definitely gonna use that to shade the chocolate part of the skirt. But also maybe use a little sepia to cool it down even more. And I think the Van Dyke wouldn't fit too well with the beige colored part of the dress, but the sepia would, because it's a very cool shade in this particular palette here. So it's a very cool brown that is almost grayish, and I don't want to go with a gray per se. Hey, that rhymes. On top of the beige, because it has a warm tint. It's almost like a warm gray in other coloring sets, not coloring sets, art supply sets, like for example my colored pencils. This would be a warm gray. It just has a different name here. So I don't want to necessarily shade it with a brown, but maybe the sepia would work, because I don't have any other warm grays in this particular set, so I got to improvise a bit on what I want to use as my shading colors. Let's go with the brown velvet part first. Oh, my tummy is gurgling. All right, let's bring in the sepia. Sepia, sepia, you are here. I'm gonna start with that skirt again, see how I like the color. Just go over the darkest spots. Pretty much just enhance the contrast of the Van Dyke brown that I had put underneath on some of the parts. I think I'm definitely liking that color for the beige. I gotta dilute it quite a bit with water, because otherwise I guess it's way too dark. But there are some rather dark shadows here on the ruffles, so maybe there's going to be places where I don't need to dilute it too much. I gotta clean up my palette first because I have a lot of other colors on it that I don't want to pull accidentally into the beige of that dress, because that would be rather not so cool. So clean up. And I'm just using a normal spray bottle to clean up my palette. I just have it filled with water and I can easily clean my palette then. Alright, sepia, here we go. Alright, again I'm starting to, with diluting that sepia quite a bit so that I don't have too dark of a shade, because it is supposed to be a cream colored dress, so I don't want it to be too dark, but I need a little contrast, so I think this works really rather lovely. And some of them I need a little more pigment, like here for example. So I'm having one spot on the palette where I have a little more water mixed with my sepia, and then I have, like, can you see it? Yeah, hold on. Down here is a lot of water and up here is only a little water, so I can move back and forth and take whatever part I need. For example, now I need one with not so much water for this little nugget down here. And also here. And here. And then I can go back to a lot of water and feather that in.
It's a little tedious to, I guess, for you to see how I repeat everything again and again. But you know, that's part of the coloring process for me. And since I'm filming these videos in real time, so I want you to see how I actually built those pictures, and that sometimes there's a lot of repetition. I guess that is what you gotta sit through, and I have been thinking about having those parts in time-lapse quite often, and again I decided to not do that. I mean, with plain backgrounds I'm fine with that, but for whatever reason not really with these quite repetitive parts here that sometimes, well, happen in pictures, especially when you have like a bigger surface that is covered with one object, say this whole dress section here of Claire's. With the pattern of the fabric, yes, things are quite repetitive. They might be a little boring even to watch, but you know, I think that is part of seeing what you gotta do to achieve, well, the final result, right? So why not have it in the video and show you how long it actually takes and such? So I've been playing with the idea of maybe having some parts time-lapsed every now and then, so I reflect on how I want to show things, and not just have it static and say, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do, so I'm never gonna change anything in the process of filming. I don't want to do that, but still, the decision has not changed for me to show most of the things, and I'd say that's 90%, in real time versus having things time-lapsed if there's a lot of repetition. It might be, or I think these are more of the quiet videos, because I tend to almost zone out. And that's actually something I'm working on, trying not to zone out then and be super quiet and not have any audio on my videos. But I guess I'm getting there. It's a little harder for me whenever I film more than one video in a day. Especially like for one format, as I'm planning to do today. So the second video will probably be quite a little more quiet, but I'm trying. So let me take a sip of my homemade peach iced tea. Made a big batch yesterday in the evening for Sebastian to take a bottle to work, for me to have one while filming, and one bottle for Jörn if he likes to have a little peach iced tea as well. So on to diluting more of the sepia for the bodice. So this is where a lot of the shadow is, but I'm working with the diluted sepia, and now I can add a little bit of the not very diluted paint. And same goes for this part. So with the diluted, very diluted color, I go for the overall shading, and then I add contrast with having a little bit of the not so diluted paint. So there's a lot of shadow here, for example, because those ruffles, they cast a shadow, most definitely. And there's a little shadow here. There's a little less up here, but something like that. And I need a little more for those folds here. There's a shadow underneath the ruffles. Okay, onto the other arm. There's shadow coming in from the right, and a little less water for the darker shadows of the fabric folds. Now I can go on to putting some more sepia onto my palette, because we need more. First I'm gonna dilute everything from the first batch of sepia and take the lower one here for the more prominent shadows. You really gotta concentrate where those ruffles end and where the next layer of ruffles is underneath. So we get a little lighter up here. Now I can go on with the dark shadows. I'm using the darker color, for example, where you can see the inside of the ruffle, like here, for example. then I'm just gonna use a little more water again to dilute the pigment and have those lighter shadows. Before I go in and add a little bit of the darker shadow. Which would be now, because I got my main shading done, and now I can just add a little more of that sepia underneath those ruffles where they cast a shadow on the skirt. And she's casting a bit onto her dress because she has the arm on top of, laying on top of her dress. So let's see, here's a little bit of a darker one. And it helps to squint for a couple of seconds to see if your values, like your contrast values, are correct. So that is what I'm doing. That looks pretty good. So I'm gonna leave it at that and move on to the other side of my dress. But I gotta drink first. All right, on to the left-hand side of the picture, her right-hand side. I'm gonna start with quite the diluted water, not water, color, words, Miss King, words. Ooh, that was a little too much of the pigment. Ah, well, the arm here and the ruffles do cast a shadow, so I got lucky there, but that was a little too dark for my taste. Now I can go in with the darker color because the main shading is done, and now I can only work on contrast. And I need more sepia. Where's my crayon? There it is. So I'm pretty much just feathering in the contrasts to make some of those folds a little more visible and play with light and dark there. But the shadows aren't as pronounced as they are here, because the light source is a little closer, so of course there's more light bouncing off of certain surfaces. I mean, this flowery part here is supposed to be satin, so there's quite a bit of light probably bouncing off in comparison to, say, the velvet here. There's a little less light bouncing, but let me squint. I need something underneath those ruffles. And like so. More sepia. The last leg of the dress, starting with the very diluted paint. Giving this an overall shadow, especially here where the arm casts a shadow. Or ruffles that are on top cast a shadow on the ruffles underneath, like here, for example, huge shadow. There's a little shadow here because, well, fabric is ruffled. There we go. And now less diluted crayon. For the very dark bits, and that is, for example, here, like on the inner parts of the ruffles where they almost look like a fold. So here, for example, here, this one gets a lot of shadow because there's tons of ruffles on top. There's a little darker part here. And also here. And I need a little more of the sepia. I thought I would have been fine with the amount of pigment I put on my palette, but obviously not. Still needed more. And almost done. See, I need a little more of a shadow down here. It's to be a bit darker. So even more sepia, not diluted too much. So another layer of shadow. That's more like it, and I need a little more here. And also it really helps with the squinting. You can see your picture like properly. You just can see colors, not shapes so much, or not as clearly. And that helps with you picking up on contrast rather than on line work. So just a tiny bit down here. And then her dress is done. I'm so happy. There we go. Now I can move on to, do I still have time? Yeah. I can move on to her earring and the rose. And I think I want her to wear silver. So this bracelet is gonna be silver, as well as the upper part of the earring. So I'm just gonna go for the earring, make it so let me restart. I like color repetition, you know that by now. It makes for a very harmonic and soft look. I do have a yellow rose here, so why not have that stone be yellow as well? So have a little color repetition. I think I want the Sahara yellow for the rose. So I'm gonna use that. And then decide on if I want this yellow or another yellow or both for that stone. If you hear weird background noise, it's raining cats and dogs over here, so that's just the rain you're hearing. Let's give her the same yellow as a base coat. I will probably add a little more of a darker yellow. And I want, which one do I want? I like the golden yellow. I have a little bit of oomph on that flower. And why not have a little bit of that golden yellow on her earring as well. On to the green for the rose. Oh, there's more yellow. I just saw. Ha ha ha. You were probably already screaming at your screens. Sarah, there's 2 more flower buds. Yeah, I just realized. But now I can take care of the green. I think I want moss green with maybe a little bit of olive green. So the moss green is a rather warm color, but it's not too warm. This is moss green, got the right one. And I want to put a little bit of a darker tone on top. I think I'm gonna take the olive here. It's quite close in color to the moss green, but it is different enough so that I can shade. These tiny bits would, by the way, be something where I'd think about using a colored pencil instead of watercolor, depending on how well I can shade those bits here. That's going to be the case later on. I want even a little more of a darker color for the rose, like for the center of that big petal, or blossom, better said. So I'm gonna take a little bit of golden ochre. Just put that on top. Yeah, I like that. So let's give Claire's earring a little golden ochre too. So that would be her without any gel pen. Now the question is, I've got half an hour. Why not go with gel pen for her? Because I don't think will I go in with colored pencil or not? That is the question, because gel pen has to come after colored pencil. So I'm just quickly adding a little bit of beige at this point as shading to her hair, to the flowers. And I'm not gonna put in the gel pen yet, because I don't know if I will have colored pencil on top. which is not too great, but I can use a little bit of the remaining sepia to even shade her hair a little more. There we go. Let me check the time. I think I'm gonna end the video here because I think it's just a very nice spot to finish. Maybe a little more. No, I think her skin tones are okay, because I was thinking maybe on the boobs or something, but I think her skin tones are okay. So I'm gonna finish the video here, and I will see you next week with the second part. I'm very likely gonna color Jamie then, and look at the book on how exactly he is described, so that I can get the colors right. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I will get back to you as quickly as I can. And be creative, do some coloring. If you work on that page, you can, and you want to share your work with me, you can post it, for example, on Instagram and tag me, or you can send it to me via email, or you can DM it on Facebook or Instagram too. Whatever you prefer, I would love to see your work. I'm always very curious. So take good care, guys, have fun, and I'm gonna see you next week. Bye!